The biggest mistake drivers make during a traffic stop isn't what they say, it isn't how they explain themselves, and it definitely isn't what's written on their license. It's what happens in complete silence, before a single word is spoken. Because while you're sitting there thinking the officer is about to walk up and ask for your documents, something else is already happening. Something fast, deliberate, and almost invisible if you don't know what to look for. They're scanning you. Not casually, not randomly, and definitely not just glancing at your license when you hand it over. Let me ask you something honestly. When a police officer walks up to your car, what do you think they notice first? You, your hands, your face, or your car? Drop your answer in the comments because most people get this completely wrong, and once you understand what actually happens in those first few seconds, you'll start to realize why some traffic stops stay simple, while others quietly become something much more serious without any obvious reason. Here's what most drivers don't realize. By the time the officer reaches your window, they've already formed an initial impression. Not a final judgment, but a working understanding of what kind of situation they're dealing with. And that understanding doesn't come from your license. It comes from a rapid mental scan that begins the moment they decide to pull you over. Let's slow that moment down so you can actually see it. The lights come on behind you. You notice them. Maybe your heart rate jumps a little. You start thinking about what you did wrong, what you're going to say, how you're going to handle it. At the exact same time, the officer is watching you. Not just your car, but your reaction. Do you brake suddenly or smoothly? Do you look around in your mirrors repeatedly? Do you hesitate before pulling over? These small details matter more than most people realize, because they tell a story before the stop even begins. Now the vehicle comes to a stop. From your perspective, this is where things start. From the officer's perspective, this is where things accelerate. The door opens, the officer steps out, and now the scan begins in full. Their eyes don't lock onto one thing. They move quickly, but not randomly. There's a pattern to it. First, your hands. Always your hands. Are they visible? Are they steady? Are they moving? This is not negotiable in their mind. Hands are the number one priority because hands are what can change a situation instantly. If your hands are on the wheel, still and visible, that sends a very clear signal. If your hands are out of sight, reaching, adjusting, or moving quickly, that sends a completely different one. And here's where things get uncomfortable for a lot of drivers. The officer doesn't know why your hands are moving. They only know that they are, so they prepare accordingly. Now, while they're tracking your hands, something else is happening at the same time. They're scanning your vehicle, not like a search, not in detail, but in impressions. What stands out immediately? Is the interior calm or chaotic? Is there something unusual in plain view? An open bag, a pile of items on the passenger seat, something tucked halfway under a jacket. None of these things automatically mean anything is wrong, but they add context, and context shapes how the officer approaches you. Now shift your focus slightly again. While watching your hands and your vehicle, the officer is also reading you. Your posture, your face, your movement. Are you turning around constantly? Are you avoiding eye contact completely? Are you frozen still in a way that feels unnatural? People often think nervousness is what gets attention. It's not. Everyone is nervous during a traffic stop. What stands out is inconsistent behavior, behavior that changes suddenly, behavior that doesn't match the situation. Let me give you a clear example so you can feel how this works in real life. A driver pulls over and immediately starts reaching into the glove box, then the center console, then the back seat. From inside the car, they're just trying to get their documents ready. From outside the car, especially from a slight angle with limited visibility, it looks like someone moving quickly between hidden areas. Now the officer approaches with a completely different mindset. Not because they know something is wrong, but because they don't know what those movements meant. That uncertainty stays with them, and that uncertainty changes everything. Now here's something most people never think about. The scan is not just about finding problems. It's about reducing unknowns. Officers are constantly trying to answer one question in their mind. Is this situation predictable? If the answer feels like yes, the stop stays smooth. If the answer feels like maybe not, the officer becomes more alert. And that shift can happen before you ever speak. Let's take this one step deeper, because this is where things get even more interesting. The scan doesn't stop when the officer reaches your window. It continues while you're talking. But by then, the foundation is already set. If your initial behavior felt calm and consistent, your words are heard in that context. If your initial behavior felt rushed or unusual, your words are filtered through that lens. That's why some drivers feel like the officer is already suspicious before they say anything, because in a way, the officer already has a working picture. Not a conclusion, but a direction. Now let's talk about something that might challenge what you've always believed. Most drivers think the goal during a traffic stop is to explain themselves clearly, to talk their way out of the situation, to justify what happened. But the reality is, the officer's first impression often matters more than your first explanation, because behavior feels more immediate than words. Words can be shaped, adjusted, even misunderstood. Behavior is raw. It's immediate. It's what the officer sees before you have time to think. And that's why this silent scan matters so much. It's fast, it's automatic, and it sets the tone. Now, I want you to think about something practical. Imagine you get pulled over tomorrow. Instead of rushing, you slow down smoothly. You signal clearly. You pull over in a safe spot. You stop the car. And then you do something most drivers don't do. You pause. You keep your hands visible. You don't immediately start reaching for anything. You let the officer approach. When they ask for your documents, you move slowly and clearly. In that scenario, the scan the officer performs tells a very different story. Calm, predictable, controlled. That doesn't guarantee any specific outcome, but it shapes the entire interaction in a way most people underestimate. Now, compare that to the opposite. You stop quickly. You start searching through compartments. You shift around in your seat. Your hands disappear and reappear. Even if everything you're doing is completely innocent, the scan tells a different story. Unclear, unpredictable, uncertain. And once that feeling exists, it doesn't just disappear. It carries into the rest of the stop. This is why two drivers in similar situations can have completely different experiences. Same type of violation, same kind of road, different first impression. Now, here's the part that really changes how you think about all of this. The officer is not just reacting to you, they are constantly managing risk. Every movement, every glance, every detail helps them decide how cautious they need to be. So, when people say, they're not even looking at my license, what they're really noticing is this. The license is just one small piece of the interaction. The real assessment happens before that moment ever arrives. It happens in motion, in silence, in those few seconds where you're not saying anything, but you're showing everything. And once you understand that, you start to realize something most drivers miss their entire lives. The traffic stop doesn't begin with a question. It begins with observation. And by the time you hand over your license, the most important part of the interaction may have already happened.